To speak. The committee will make a decision following each application. If there is anyone present who is not an applicant or an agent who is interested in the decision of the committee, you may file your answers with our secretary treasurer. Please list the file number, your full name, and mailing address. Copies of the decisions are automatically sent to the applicant and agent within 15 days of today's meeting. Only the applicant, the minister, a specified person, or any public body may appeal decisions in respect to the applications for consent or minor variances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. The decisions are filed if there are no appeals 20 days after the committee's decision. May I please remind everyone that we are being recorded and to mute your devices, please. Phil? And our podium is the two chairs at the end kind of thing today. State your first and last name for the record. Yeah, so there you go. First order of business is, did the committee, all the members have a chance to review the minutes of the previous meeting? If so, can I get a motion to adopt the minutes? Linda? Phil? All in favor? Carried. Yep. Any members have any disclosures of interest when considering any of these applications that we're dealing with today? Are there any? No? Okay. Our first application to be considered is a severance. And the planner can give the report, please.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, an application has been received to sever a parcel having no frontage, approximately 60 meters, a depth of approximately 626 meters, and having an area of approximately 10,647 square meters, or 2.63 acres. Retain a parcel having an area of approximately 194,402 square meters as a boundary adjustment. Lands to be added to the existing farmland located immediately adjacent to the west of 281 concession to Townsend, resulting in a final lot size of 104,130 square meters. So the subject lands are located east of the intersection of Highway 24 and concession to Townsend, and the lands to be severed are occupied by two accessory structures, which seem to be airplane hangars, which are shown in figures 1 and 2 of my report. It's my understanding that the effect of this application is to address an encroachment of the structures which, due to federal legislation, would not be subject to municipal permit requirements, and to support the preservation of an existing aerodrome, and to protect the existing wetland from future landowners on the parcel to be retained. So figure 3 of my report shows the subject land with the structures, the aerodrome runway, and the pond located from front to rear of the parcel, respectively. So for some context, this application was considered at the June 21st, 2023 Committee of Adjustment meeting. At that time, staff, after a site visit, sought some further information from the applicant on the technical or legal reason for the boundary adjustment and history of the structures affected by the adjustment. An applicant submitted a letter on June 5th, 2023, which is attachment 2, outlining site's history and the purpose of the adjustment, and further a presentation for as attachment 3. Was submitted at that time, and we also received a digital copy of the Federal Aeronautics Power in Canada 2022, a primer for Canadian Owners and Pilots Association by Macmillan LLP, which was submitted on June 20th, 2023. So for that latter publication, it is referenced in the presentation of attachment 2 that was submitted by the applicant, so I also reviewed it. And I'll just make a brief kind of ending note as comments on the discussion on policy. So a recommendation of referral from staff was passed by the Committee Adjustment on June 21st, 2023. Key items were requested by myself in the previous plan reports as needed to understand how the proposed boundary adjustment is for legal or physical reasons and meets the official plan of PPS. My report summarizes what I understand the responses to these requests, 1 through 5. And as a whole, it's my opinion, requests 2 and 3 have been addressed sufficiently by the applicant, so a bulk of this discussion relates to requests 1 and 2. So with that preamble aside, I'll start with the policy piece. So through the PBS, section 2.3.4.2 outlines lot adjustments in prime agricultural areas, recognizing that this lot is designated and zoned agricultural. Noting that these adjustments are permitted for legal or technical reasons, and the PBS defines a legal or technical reason as severances for purposes such as easements, corrections of deeds, quit claims, and minor boundary adjustments, which do not result in the creation of a new lot. So there's kind of 2 pieces to the justification. There's the wetland or pond, and then the aerodrome itself. So I'll start with the pond, which is a little bit shorter. Yes, section 2.0 outlines policies pertaining to natural resources. Highlighting resources are varying size and form in rural areas, the connectivity of natural features in an area, and long-term ecological function and biodiversity of natural heritage systems should be maintained, restored, or where possible improved. A comment received by the Grand River Conservation Authority is included in attachment 4 to my report, confirming the presence of the wetland and noting in terms of anticipated impact, quote, the land to be severed is part of an agricultural operation, and the existing agricultural uses will continue on the reconfigured parcels. It is our understanding that no additional development is proposed at this time. As such, GRCA staff do not anticipate any impacts to the natural hazard features as a result of the proposed land addition, end quote. I'd also note that section 2.1.2 of the PBS highlights that natural heritage features are diverse and interconnected. However, it does not indicate whether ecological form and biodiversity of these features is maintained or restored by expanding private property boundaries through boundary adjustments. So it's my professional opinion that natural features, including wetlands and forests, generally exist without regard to legal property lines, and the mechanism of boundary adjustment today does not necessarily ensure that a natural feature is preserved through private ownership over the long term. So reconfiguring a lot doesn't offer any enforceable way to ensure the wetland is preserved in accordance with any sort of ecological standards outside of the existing or above existing regulatory powers of bodies like the GRCA or the MNRF. So there's that piece. In terms of the aerodrome, the submitted documents do outline how we define an aerodrome through the Aeronautics Act. And that includes the runway strip and the structures that are needed to house and store airplane materials and equipment. So my earlier requests required a concept plan that showed the length and width required for the aerospace or landing strip for both of the lands to benefit and be retained. And the benefit of that is it would demonstrate how the size and configuration of the flow severance is needed and therefore is a legal or technical reason. So reviewing the information provided, I understand that the reason for this additional length of runway is to improve safe maneuvering for a specific type of plane used on the runway in less than ideal conditions. I would just note that the runway is located about 250 meters in depth on the parcel to be severed, whereas the total depth, if you can maybe go back a slide to show what the adjustment looks like, the total depth is about 626 meters. So there's about an excess of roughly 376 meters in depth for the runway. And then the applicant had identified the other feature being incorporated through the boundary adjustment is a pond or the wetland, which is located approximately 420 meters in depth. So that again leaves this kind of excess of 200 meters behind the rear of the pond and the rear of the separate parcel. The second request was documents which demonstrate the planes are permitted to operate on lands to benefit, or the aerodrome is essentially permitted to operate. So this would demonstrate that the use is legally permitted. So staff, to be clear, would not support a boundary adjustment to accommodate a use that has not been legally established. So from reviewing the applicant's submission, it's my understanding that the previous owner was granted permission from the federal government to establish an aerodrome on the property which enabled the establishment of the runway and the buildings. The applicant has explained that because the aerodrome was established in 1961 under the legal definition of an aerodrome, that how it was established is not relevant, specifically because it was established prior to the inauguration of municipal consultation. And then another added layer of complexity is that historic property owners are now deceased. So I consulted the chief building official and zoning administrator, and the consensus among staff was some sort of documentation is needed to confirm the aerodrome is legally permitted. So condition number 3 has been added to reflect this. And then to clarify, this condition does not prohibit the use of an aerodrome. It doesn't state how the aerodrome can be used or whether the building's part of the aerodrome require a permit. The condition is to ensure municipal staff are completing their due diligence, as we do with other boundary adjustments, in confirming the justification underlying the boundary adjustment is accurate. So how the condition has been written is intended to provide sufficient flexibility for the applicant or the staff, demonstrating the site as we were looking forward to work with them on that piece. So, in my opinion, if the documentation can be provided which confirms the aerodrome has been legally and historically established, then the technical justification for a minor boundary adjustment has been demonstrated for the constituents of the aerodrome, which includes the accessory structures and the runway. However, I don't believe this justification extends to the wetland or lands beyond the wetland. So if we included the whole severance, I don't think it would meet the intent of the PPS, which requires adjustments are minor and for technical or legal reasons. So condition number 2 has been placed to amend the proposed severance to only incorporate the constituents of the aerodrome affected by the severance, plus an additional 9 meters to remove the new part of the plane, so a little extra wiggle room. Following policy, official plan pulls from language from PPS, so permitting minor boundary adjustments. Section 9.6.3.2 states the size of any parcel of land created by consent should be appropriate to the use proposed, considering the level of services available, set conditions and other factors, and no parcel should be created which does not conform to the provisions of the zoning bylaw. So the zoning bylaw identifies 40 hectares as the minimum lot area for parcel in the agricultural zone. So conditions 4 and 5 have been added, which require minor variance to be sought for the 2 parcels in order to meet official plan policies. I'll finish this not very brief preamble with a brief note on those 45-page primer on aeronautics the applicant provided that I genuinely enjoyed reading. If you couldn't tell, I went down the rabbit hole on this, and it's really interesting material, but essentially it's a commentary on case law. And the author themselves have this quote that I'll just share. It says, they request readers to keep in mind that the exclusive federal jurisdiction over aeronautics does not mean provincial jurisdiction stops at the airport fence. The division of constitutional powers in Canada is not geographical in the sense, but functional. It does not necessarily create an island for federally regulated enterprise in a sea of provincial and municipal regulations. And then within the primer is a majority of case studies, which typically are kind of discuss attempted regulation by municipalities for the proposed use, often in relation to building permits. But again, to clarify, in this application, the use is not proposed. And this recommendation of approval subject to the attached conditions is not anticipated or intended to prohibit the use. We're really just doing our due diligence on the justification piece. But with all that said, planning staff considered the subject application to be consistent with the policies of PPS and official plan, and I recommend supporting this application subject to the attached conditions. Thanks.
Thank you. Give you a minute to catch your breath.
I have to do it up front.
Any questions of the committee for the planner? Is there an agent or applicant present? Do you have anything to add?
Yes, I actually don't mind.
Sure.
Do I stand?
You can make yourself comfortable if you like.
I know, first of all, I know that this is more complicated than it should have been. Unfortunately, we have never been, Mr. Logan and the planner have never been able to have a discussion. That connection was never made. There was holidays and different things. But there is some corrections and clarifications I would like to make in the report that's in front of us. We got it late Friday and we couldn't send a response because of that. So first of all, when we go to page 1 and the page following, it's basically said that the intention of the lands was not meant to encroach, but encroach of the buildings. The buildings were built before these lands were severed. These 2 properties were once part of a large farm that over the years have gotten divided. So all of this existed before the death of David Logan Sr., who then subsequently the parcels, and we know that happens with a lot of parcels. So all of this existed before, since 61. Okay, so that's a bit of an error, just for clarification. That's not necessary. Okay. In regards to the requirement for a letter from the federal government, we're not going to get that. We requested, it was kind of today, David Logan was at the Minister of Transport office and he said, "You don't need that." And he said, "Well, they said we do." So from our perspective, I know we present a lot of information, but the information we provided, basically the most important part was the definition of an aerodrome, which said it doesn't need to be registered. Unregistered aerodromes are legal. This is an unregistered aerodrome. We will not get a letter from the government saying that we have permission because the government, the federal government, the Ministry of Transport's justification for not providing so is that they have, by definition, given permission for this aerodrome to exist. There are a lot of aerodromes in Canada that are unregistered, at least 5,000. We sat this morning and named off 6 that were in the northern part of Norfolk County, not aware of how many are closer to the lake. You have a lot of unregistered aerodromes here, and they are all legal under the definition of the Canadian Aeronautics Act, which we provided for you. So established unregistered aerodromes are legal entities, and the planner is requesting documentation as a condition that it's registered and licensed, which is not a requirement by the federal government or under the Act. Some of the ways they wanted documentation, one of the ones was a flight supplement. We aren't listed in the flight supplement. The flight supplement is basically a green book that all pilots have with them when they're flying, and it provides information about landing strips and park in airports. It does not include unregistered, and it also doesn't include some private registered aerodromes, runways, as you might notice better, because if you don't want people landing at your private strip, you don't list it in that supplement. And that keeps unwanted heavy traffic from a private aerodrome, which frankly, County of Norfolk wouldn't want because you have a lot more planes landing and taking off in some of these rural strips that are all over the place, heavily populated in this area. So historically, we didn't have the requirement for some of the documentation that was asked of us. There was absolutely no thought that we would need a letter from David Logan Sr. to say he gave Barry Logan permission in '61. I've never met David Logan Sr. unfortunately. I've seen pictures of him. He was a giant of a man who towered over everyone. I'm quite sure if anyone did something on his land without his permission, they probably would have inherited a parcel from him. So the federal government encouraged private runways to facilitate aviation growth since the Second World War. They still do encourage this. They've come to some compromises on the establishment, and with populations growing, I think that probably is common sense. You don't want someone putting a runway right outside the town. So the conditions that are there will not be able to be met. And just one more thing that I've been asked to say is that the straight line, I know there's problems with the justification, but from a farming perspective, the little jets out that, they won't be farm lands. It's not going to affect the available farming land on either side of the line, no matter how you draw it. Farmlands will continue to be farmlands. And that's all. Okay.
Any questions from the committee? Linda?
Just to the planner with regards to condition number 3, then, do you have any comment?
Yeah, so I'll just read the condition, just to clarify, because I think there might be a potential misunderstanding on the planning department requiring that are registered, being registered or certified, etc. I understand there's complexities in type of aerodrome, and even the person I've been talking to, David, has been really great in providing me lots of information. So I'm sorry we couldn't speak, but I have probably shared emails with you and also Department of Budget. So number 3, that a document or letter from Transport Canada or designate which confirms the aerodrome, which includes 2 airplane hangars and runway, is currently located on parcels with all numbers, using the designated receiving parcels, has been legally established through commissions by a ministry of the federal government of Canada to the satisfaction of the chief building official designate. So to clarify, the conditions are required that it be a registered aerodrome or an unregistered aerodrome or a certified aerodrome, so that language isn't in there. It sounds like maybe you've taken some time to spoke and precedent, received an email, is that
We
correct?
received in person and.
Not really.
Well, it's honestly, we're stuck between one government and another,
Yeah.
right? So as, the response was, as long as you are outside of a populated area and aren't near an open air assemblage of persons, you can legally take off and land your aircraft wherever you want. So that's, and I've seen that phrase written places, and that's what he said to David today, and David's more like, okay. So we're stuck between 2 governing bodies.
Right, yeah.
That we can't put in writing.
Because they say the definition gives permission for it to be there.
Right, and again, it's a legal thing, so I can only do like within my roles as a planner to interpret an act that is a federal act or legal definition, right? So this condition is intended to just provide that due diligence on that. Because otherwise I'm really guessing.
Let me ask you, is there something very loose that the government, the feds will provide that acknowledging the existence of the aerodrome?
Just a copy of the act, just the definition, it says it
Yeah,
here.
it's about this,
Yeah, well,
Maybe
and
there.
they keep referencing, the Canadian Aviation Regulations, SOR /96-433, which is the definition that says, references that not all runways have to be registered. You can be registered, unregistered. I do have that.
Mr. Chair, the condition includes a document or a letter. So any document that can provide evidence that this is legal, established on.
and that's what I was getting at, yeah. Anything.
So
with the copy of the act,
Would a copy of the act be sufficient?
So I would suggest providing as much document as possible to the chief of building official and then the chief of building official will assist it.
Okay. Go ahead, Linda.
Well, given the history on the property, like, I don't know, and what we've heard and the definition of the act, I'm supporting the application and I'm gonna suggest we just remove condition 3. I know the government's not gonna be happy with that, but the runway's there, the use is established and
I'm gonna agree on that, when you suggested, that we need some kind of evidence. I think the act is, all the evidence we're probably gonna be getting,
I think so too.
if we're being fair.
I'll support Linda.
That,
And again, you mentioned all this, that this function is not on, so.
trying to get anything out of the feds would be like, what was told. Trust me. Okay. Anything else, anybody? Okay, is there anybody else present or online who wishes to speak to this application? Hearing none. Anything else, the wishes of the committee?
so my motion then is
Move to approve.
move to approve with the removal of condition 3.
Removal of condition 3, okay. Second. Tim? So file number BMPL 2023142, the name of David Logan and Kara Logan. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and complies with the policy of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the boundary adjustment in an agricultural area and meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. All in favor? And that is carried. I'm Okay. So next up, we have file number ANPL 2023175 in the name of Warren Sheridan. Give the report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received seeking relief of 19% from the permitted 15% lot coverage for the existing cottage with a total lot coverage of 34% and relief of 12 square meters from permitted 55 square meters for a boathouse within the resort residential zone to allow a boathouse with a total of 67 square meters of usable floor area. The subject lands are located on the west side of Cedar Drive, south of the intersection with Reserve Street. It is a permanent dwelling within the resort residential zone of Turkey Point and backs onto a waterway. The area of the subject lands is approximately 0.18 acres with approximately 19.5 meters of frontage onto Cedar Drive. The subject lands are occupied by an existing single-story dwelling, resulting in a lot coverage of approximately 34%. It is staff's opinion that the proposed application meets the intent of both Planning Act and PPS, as well as meeting the overall intent and purpose of the official plan in the Lakeshore Special Policy Area Secondary Plan. The subject application is to facilitate the construction of a non-habitable single-story boathouse with a covered patio area and to seek relief for an existing legally non-conforming lot coverage deficiency for the dwelling. The levels of relief sought are considered in this instance to be minor and appropriate and would meet the overall intent and purpose of the zoning bylaws. As such, staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Okay, thank you. Is there an applicant or agent present? Okay, Tim, I'll get to you in a sec. Any questions of the committee, to the planner? Do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. Ms. Megan Taylor, you're from KLS.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak to this application, either present or online? Seeing none. Anything else from the committee? What are the committee's wishes? Lisa? Seconded? File number ANPL 2023175 in the name of Warren Sheridan. In accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the request for relief is considered appropriate for proposed development, minor nature, maintains the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, next up we have file number ANPL 2023169 in the name of Jesse Bacano. And planner, can you give the report, please?
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to seek relief of 99.72 square meters from the maximum usable floor area of 100 square meters to allow the construction of a 199.72 square meter accessory building to the rear of the dwelling. I will not go into great detail at this point, as you will have seen that the recommendation in the report is for referral. The subject lands are within two zones, hamlet residential and agricultural. The agricultural zone is to the rear of the site. Given this, there has been some confusion over which zoning provisions apply to the proposed accessory building. The zoning administrator has confirmed through her circulation response that the proposed accessory building, even though it would be located fully within the agricultural zone, must follow the provisions of the main use, which is wholly contained within the hamlet residential zone. As such, relief will be required for the height of this building. This was not included in the public notice or on the site signage, and as such, this application would need to be referred to allow for a new public notification period to be undertaken with the amended description. This has been agreed with the agent for the site. As such, staff recommend this application for referral.
Okay, thank you. Is there an agent or applicant present? No? Anything from the committee or the planner? You're not the agent for this application, are you, sir?
No, sorry.
Okay, just checking. Okay, all right. So, is there anyone present or online who wishes to speak to this application? No? Any, the wishes of the committee? So we're moving for a referral.
Yep.
And second, Lisa? So this application, ANPL 2023-169, in the name of Jesse McKenna, has been moved to be referred. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay. Next up is file number ANPL 2023-168, named Stephanie Jaff, Junior Row. And the planner, give the report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received seeking relief of 133 square meters from the required corner lot area of 560 square meters to allow a lot of 427 square meters, 0.017 meters from the lot frontage of 18 meters to allow a lot frontage of 17.983 meters, and 3.61 meters from the required front yard setback of 6 meters to allow front yard setback of 2.39 meters for the retained lot following severance permitted through BNPL 2023023. Members will be familiar with the site as you previously approved the severance and a minor variance for the severed lot. The subject lands are located at 199 Wellington Street, a corner plot which is on the east side of Wellington Street at the corner of Wellington and Hall Street in Waterford. This application seeks relief for deficiencies in the retained lands following the severance and was a condition of the severance application. The lot is zoned R1A. The area of the subject land is approximately 427 square meters, with the frontages, as noted, on Wellington Street and approximately 23 meters on Hall Street. There's an existing dwelling on the site with a current front yard setback of 2.39 meters. The only deficiency which required relief was the lot size, given the severance made the retained lot deficient in this regard. In general, existing deficiencies such as front yard setback or the frontage would not specifically require minor variance to correct. However, quite rightly, they have been included in this application, so all deficiencies in the retained lands can be regularized under current zoning bylaws. The proposed lot size is not unusual for this part of Waterford, which has a mix of quite modest lots as well as larger lots. The frontage is legally non-conforming and the level of relief sought is exceptionally minor. In terms of the front yard setback, or in terms of the front yard setback, the existing setback is also legally non-conforming, and this dwelling has been in situ for many years. As such, whilst the level of relief for front yard setback could be considered significant in a different situation, given it is a long-standing non-conforming deficiency, it is considered to be minor and appropriate in this instance. Staff recommend this application for approval.
Okay, thank you. Is there a planner, agent or applicant present for this application? No? Does the committee have any questions of the planner? The wishes of the committee? Okay.
Move to approve.
Move to approve, thank you. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this application? Always catching me on that. No, anyone present wants to speak to this application? No, thank you. Seconded by Bill. File number ANPL 2023-168, the name of Stephanie Jaff and Junior Row. And of course, accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the requested relief is not considered, is not considered, what is the typo? Is considered appropriate. Scratch out the not. Is considered appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, and does meet and maintain the general intent of the official plan of the zoning map. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is file number AMPL 2023-181 of the name of Bradley and Kimberly Lockhart. And the planner can give report, please.
So the chair, an application has been received seeking relief from section 5.8.2H of the county zoning bylaw to increase the level of lot coverage from 10% to 15% to facilitate the construction of a boathouse and attached garage. The subject lands are located on the west side of Walker Road, and the land is municipally known as 27 Walker Road in the Long Point area. The lands are designated for residential and zoned for residential. The land currently contains a two-story vacation dwelling. The lot has an approximate area of 702 meters squared, with an approximate frontage of 17 meters and an approximate depth of 41 meters. At the time of writing the report, no public input had been received and no concerns were raised by any competent departments or agencies. However, since this time, one letter of objection has been received in which a member of the public raised concerns with the lot coverage of the main dwelling on the land and held a request to increase in allowable lot coverage for the accessory structures to negatively impact the subject lands. The letter also raised concerns with the prolonged construction and how that will negatively affect the abutting property owners' enjoyment of their own cottage. The submitted objection has been circulated to the committee members for consideration. And staff are of the opinion that the requested relief for the increase in allowable lot coverage, the proposed boathouse and attached garage maintains the intent of the official plan, as well as the county's zoning bylaw, is minor in nature and can be considered desirable for the development of the land, for the reasons listed out in the staff report before you, and as such recommend the application for approval.
Okay, thank you. Is there an agent or applicant present?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Sorry?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll get to you in a second.
Yep.
Does the committee have any questions of the planner? Does the agent have anything to add?
Nope.
No, nothing to add?
Just
Just a minute. We're getting there. I know. So I imagine we have a few people here that are interested in speaking to this application, and so we may as well start with you, ma'am. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if my brother is on there or not, but
I don't know.
my
What's his name?
Claus Casler.
Is Claus Casler present online? I guess not.
My parents live at 25 Poplin,
Right?
right directly. We're the ones who are going to be affected by this.
You submitted this earlier?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was the renovation.
Before you go further, can I just get you to state your name and I guess your address? I know you're representing your parents.
Yeah.
We need it just for the record.
Okay, my name is Andrea Casler Millman. You want my home address or you want?
Okay.
Not to create a problem for Brad and him, but their property is going to be all cement. This boathouse is going to be huge. It's not just a matter of the boathouse. We're concerned about we have a lot of flooding where we are. Where we live, right at the end of our street, there's a lot of flooding. We've had, as you are probably aware, we've had some pretty dandy storms out there. And the drainage is not the greatest. Where is this water going to go? We've had our property surrounded from the bay, from Crown Land, and from another channel directly across from us. If this is totally made and covered in cement, which I understand that that's what's gonna happen, where's the water gonna go when there's storms? And it's gonna land on my parents' property. They've owned this property for 50 years. They built that property, that cottage. That's, and the fact that, I mean, I know it's the way of the world out there now with these monstrous boathouses, and we're back in the 70s.
Okay.
We have.
But basically, it's the gist of your
Well,
presentation.
that, we're gonna totally lose our view of the bay, which is why they bought that property that many years ago.
Okay. Anything else? I want to give you your chance.
Yeah, but I just wanna make, I wanna make sure that this is, we're not gonna get flooded even more, and
We'll ask the agent to respond to that when we first get everybody. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to this application? Would the agent care to respond?
Yes, I'd just like to address that by
Could you
stating.
stand up so I can-
Yeah,
Yeah.
hi, I'm the builder of the boathouse, or the proposed builder anyways. So,
Sorry, are you the property owner? or-
no, I'm just acting as their agent because they're out of town.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm the builder looking after it, and my name's Dwayne Helmer from New Vista Contractors. So anyways, we have to go through a process with grading. So at that point, their grading becomes a serious point. We don't want to put any water on the neighbors. And I didn't do the house, but I would definitely put all the rainwater meters right straight to the channel. And everything that's on that property should stay on that property or go directly into the boat well. If there is overland flooding, the ground is already saturated at that point, so there's no open amount of sod or anything else that would help you get rid of your water at that point, realistically, because we're talking 2 feet of water, like what happened when you explained there was some big floods down there. So anyways, yeah, lot grading.
Yeah, it usually happens at the building permit stage.
Yeah, exactly, and all of
So it's covered up.
Yeah, we're gonna cover it, and we're gonna do our best to build
The
retaining
building
walls
permit
or whatever.
requires a drainage plan.
And if you see issue with that drainage after it's done, then by all means, there's engineers that designed that, and we can take it up at that point, sure.
I mean, we had rain 4 days ago out there, and the entire part of my parents' property is flooded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know the street and everything seems to be low in that whole area. There's a huge puddle up front.
Okay, well, that's a classic long point everywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Everything's going up too, so it's very hard to contain it. So we do our best, you know, and like I
How
say,
large is this boathouse going to be?
this boathouse is actually modest. I've been a builder in Norfolk County for 30 years, and this is actually a very modest boathouse. The boat structure itself, that boat well, is actually open air. So they kept it open air so there would be a view. They kept the actual built structure 5 feet back from the edge of the seawall, so all the neighbors further in would get a view still, because that is actually their entitlement. They could go right to the seawall.
I
they
thought
did,
had
they-
to be 4 feet away.
No, the seawall's actually their property, so they could be right on the edge of the seawall with the boathouse. And it's not really a boathouse because it doesn't go, there's no water under it. It's just the garage, and then there's a little roof line that covers the boat, and it's again open air. So yeah, like, it's a big shed with a lean-to on the side of it to harbor that boat. And that's
Sometimes enough if you submit some drawings.
Yeah, it's, I brought one, but it was pretty
rough.
Oh, it's not rough by any means, but it's only 1 page for 25 people in the room. So,
Okay.
anyways, yeah, it's modest, in my opinion.
Anything from the committee, Linda?
Just a comment that the application isn't asking for relief of height, so whatever they're proposing is allowable within the zoning bylaw.
Thank you. Anything else from anybody else on the committee? Is there, I'll give it one more shot. Is there anyone else present who wishes to speak to this application? Is somebody online?
Yes, through the chair, my name is Greg Skinner. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have been having some connectivity issues. Sorry about that. My spouse owns the property at 22 Poplar, and our issue is the obstruction of the sight lines that the property at 22 would have down the channel. I think the builder has answered some of those questions, but I just wanted some clarification. I understand it's open air. Is it a 2-story boathouse with a 1-story garage lean-to? Is that what I understood?
It's all single story.
It's all single story. Thank you very much.
And you heard the part where it's set back 5 feet or so from the seawall?
Yeah.
I did hear that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That's it?
That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. One last time, anyone else wishes to speak to this application? And what are the wishes of the committee?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Linda. And seconder, please. Lisa. So, file number ANPL 2023-181, Bradley and Kimberly Lockhart, moved by Linda, seconded by Lisa to approve. In accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the request for relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development of the land, minor in nature, and maintains the general intent of the zoning bylaw and the official plan. All those in favor? And that's carried. And I'll just add that your drainage issues get picked up again at the building permit stage.
Yes, okay.
As part of the permitting process. So make sure you may want to reach out to the building department in the next day or two, or if you have lots of time. They can't issue a building permit for 20 days anyway after a decision, so I would touch base with that.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and you need some assistance with the elevator, correct?
I'm okay.
You sure?
Yeah, it'll burn off some energy.
Okay. Give us a shot if you need it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So file number ANPL 2023-183, Kenneth and Susan Newhoff, on the planning committee report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received seeking relief of zoning bylaws to allow the construction of a garage extension to an existing boathouse and a full 2nd-story addition to the boathouse and garage. Relief of 0.2% lot coverage is sought to allow a lot coverage of 10.2%, 2.65 meters in height to allow a total height of 7.65 meters, and 49.6 square meters to allow a usable floor area of 105.6 square meters. I will not go into detail at this point, as you will have seen on the recommendation for referral in the report. There has been confusion over the interpretation of the bylaws, and through circulation response from the zoning administrator, it has been determined that the above levels of relief are incorrect. Given the nature of the building and the internal linkages, the entire structure must be considered a boathouse, and therefore relief would be necessary to allow a boathouse with a usable floor area of approximately 172 square meters. The garage does not fall under general accessory buildings in this instance. As such, a new public notification process will be required with the new levels of relief posted correctly. Given this, staff have no option but to recommend this application for referral. And this decision was made in consultation with the applicant and would be referred to September's Committee of Adjustment meeting for a decision.
Okay, thank you. Is there an agent or applicant present?
Yes.
Okay, and you're good with that? You got anything to add?
Yeah, maybe just one thing. I think we were caught off guard with the boathouse usable floor area, because the bylaw seems to be using the actual water within the boathouse as usable floor area, which I think that's what caught us off guard and made our calculation.
Okay.
So I don't know if Norfolk County wants to consider maybe adding maybe something to the bylaw to state that the water itself would be considered as usable floor area, just for future.
Verbiage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just say future condition.
But other than that, you're fine with this,
Yes, we do have an agreement with Andrew.
Okay. Is there anyone present or online that wishes to speak to this application? No? Does the committee have anything to add or ask questions or anything like that? Yeah, good. And we'd like to move to refer.
Absolutely.
Come on, mind reader at this thing. And a second, Bill. I just felt that too. So, file number ANPL 2023183, Kenneth and Susan Newhoff, this application has been moved to be deferred. All in favor? And that is carried.
Just a point of clarity. The definition of usable floor area in the zoning bylaw does specify that a boat slip is included in the case of a boathouse, so
Okay,
just for transparency.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, through the chair.
Sure.
Recommendation for referral, not deferral.
We got, yeah, we're gonna order another stamp because grief. We'll just pencil. Okay. Where are we here? Okay, so file number BNPL 2022319, Harold and Doris Felton. I can give the report.
That's me, thank you. So, through the chair, if it's okay, may I please present the severance and corresponding minor variance together?
Sure.
So regarding severance, an application has been received to sever parts having a frontage of approximately 42 meters and a regular width of 42 to 47 meters, a depth of 94 meters, and an area approximately of 1.06 acres or 0.43 hectares, and retain a parcel having an area of 15.58 acres or 20.47 hectares. As a severance of dwelling being surplus to farm and elevation, the consent application is being reviewed concurrently with the zoning amendment for the routine lands to move the single detached dwelling as a permitted use in the agricultural zone. And a minor variance application, which was received to recognize the deficiencies created through the severance application DNPL 2022-319, require relief of 92.83 from the maximum permitted usable floor area for accessory structures of 200 square meters, to permit a usable floor area of 292.83 square meters, and 3.86 the minimum front yard setback of 13 meters to permit a decreased front yard setback of 9.14 meters for the main use. The subject lands are predominantly designated in zone agricultural, with a portion designated in zone hazard lands. The lands to be severed are occupied by a single detached dwelling, trees, detached garage, and barn that is intended to be used for personal residential storage use, as shown in Figure 1 of my report. The barn currently historically has not been used for livestock. The lands retained contains 3 foundations for previous tobacco counts. So section 2.31C of the PBS states operation of private ag areas is discouraged and is permitted only for resident surplus to a farming operation. As a result of farm consolidation, provided the new law will be limited to minimum size needed to accommodate the use and appropriate sewage and water services. Additionally, through the presence of hazard lands, the application is subject to review by the Long-Term Region Conservation Authority. Their comment included as attachment 1 indicates they have concern with the concept of the proposal. So staff have evaluated the farming operation and determined that the proposed severance meets the definition of a resident surplus to farming operation as a result of farm consolidation. The lot size does exceed the minimum lot area of 2,000 square meters through the zoning bylaw. This is partially due to the desire to retain the former barn at the rear of the lot. And then staff understand that the east and west lot lines will be limited in their ability to be placed closer to the house as they appear to correspond with surrounding non-cultivated land, trees to the west, and a detached garage to the east. And then similarly, a septic system located west of the dwelling would further limit the western lot line from being moved closer to the house. So we think a reasonable accommodation can be met. Just want to note it's important to retain farming infrastructure with the farming parcel. However, I do recognize the structure was initially constructed as a barn. It's intended to be retained for personal residential uses, and cumulatively, the two accessory structures on site exceed the maximum permissions for use in the floor area. So it's the barn plus the garage, and the facade is not out of character from other typical requests that we see at Norfolk County's Committee of Adjustment for lots in the agricultural area. So as always, context matters. The proximity of a barn to a dwelling can cause compatibility issues between residential owners and farm operators that choose to access the structures for farm vehicles or farm storage. So this particular site does not appear to have other farm buildings or connected driveways or other sorts of infrastructures that would cause any concerns from a planning perspective in terms of compatibility. And compatibility is important because it's discussed through sections 7.2.3 of the official plan and also 9632 of the official plan. So there's a range of concerns and reasons for thinking about that. Anyways, all I have to say is I don't anticipate the retention of the barn to compromise the long-term use of the land or the viability of the farm operation. Just again, highlighting for other types of severances, this may change, so the context matters. With all that said, other items of relief are required for the zoning bylaw. And for the severance, conditions 4 and 5 have been added by the development engineering department, which pertain to the installation of an entrance and property dedication. As it pertains to application BNPL 2022-319, my opinion that the consent is consistent with policies of the PPS official plan and zoning bylaw, and I'm recommending it for approval, subject to the attached conditions. And I'm happy to give you recommendations for the minor variance following. Decision. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So that covers both of them again?
So I just gave the recommendation for the consent.
Yeah.
Would you like me to, or
I don't think we really need to, unless we have other jobs on that.
procedurally, yeah, I might need to vote on each.
We will do that, yes. Pardon me? Okay. So we'll have file number, is there an agent or applicant?
I'm here just to answer questions, thank you.
Yeah, nothing, Mary?
No.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything of the committee to the planner? No? Is there anyone present or online that wishes to speak to this application? Hearing none. The wishes of the committee this is for file number BNPL 2022319. Move to approve. Move to approve, Phil. Second. Tim, thank you. So file number BNPL 2022319, Harold and Doris Helmer. The application is consistent with provincial policy statement, complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot in the agricultural area and meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. All in favor? And that's carried. So next up is file number ANPL 2022320. Hannah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so briefly, I'm recommending for approval, given my opinion that it meets the 4 tests for minor variance.
Okay, thank you. Is there there's an agent present? Yes? And is there anything from the committee, questions at all? Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this application? Present or online? No? What are the wishes of the committee? Lisa?
I'll second.
Thank you. So file AMPL 2022-320, Harold and Doris Helmer. The application is consistent with the PPS, complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot in an agricultural area and meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. All in favor? And that's carried. So that's that. We have multiples here too. Use all these together, kind of sort of, yeah? How you gonna?
Mr. Chair, I would like to present the NPL 2023-174 separate, and then the remaining three applications. The NPL 2023-189, AMPL 2023-173, and AMPL 2023-190.
So why don't we do 174 first, and then we can move on from there. Okay, so let's file EMPL 2023-174 in the name of Ian Lazzarato, and the planner can do the report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to establish an existing parcel on a judge's plan through a consent to sever application having a frontage approximately of 15 meters, regular width of 15 meters, regular depth of 25 meters, an area of 0.01 hectares, and the main parcel having an area of 0.023 hectares. Just a top note, a minor error in my report, so the body text states there's no comment from the LPRCA and is not listed as an attachment. However, a comment from the LPRCA was received and the comment is attached to the report, so apologies for that confusion. The subject lands are located northwest of the intersection of Harold Street and Cedar Drive and Turkey Point. And the purpose of this application, we understand to essentially be a legal exercise to separate two existing parcels identified as 2 Harold Street and 63 Cedar Drive, which have merged on title. So the effect of the severance will enable the estate of the property owner to proceed with the sale to separate property owners. Nothing is changing about the existing lots. Any deficiencies in the zoning bylaw can be understood as legal non-complying. A letter has been submitted by the applicant in attachment 2, summarizing the site's context. I just want to thank the applicant for his continued collaboration with me on this project, which has been complex given its uniqueness. The LPRCA's submitted that comment noted indicating no concerns with the proposal, given again its unique context. Section 9.6.3 permits these types of applications, so administrative or technical matters by their minor nature. So with all that said, I'm of the opinion the subject application is consistent with the policies of the PPS, confirms the official plan, and recommend this application for approval subject to the attached conditions.
Okay, thank you. Is there an agent or applicant present? Okay.
It's our uncle that passed away.
Okay.
My name is on this file, but Carol Anderson is also one of the executors, so I don't know if you need to put her name on the file or not.
Well, so do you have anybody representing you?
Yes, he can't make it.
Okay.
A lawyer in Brantford.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Is he on?
He tried, he just emailed saying he was trying to get on. He cannot connect to the meeting remotely, he can't find a proper link for the Microsoft Teams. And he's tried to contact some people that were all in this meeting, so he hasn't had any success.
Okay, we can. Send him a link?
Yeah.
We can send him a link.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I can send him the link.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so in the meantime, does the committee have any questions of the plan? No. Sorry. We'll bear with it. We've got patience, so we'll just bear it out, give everyone a fair shot, and that's what we're all doing here. Well, let me ask you this, as do you have anything to add to the report? You're fine with everything that they've come up with, and you've consulted with your lawyers, and he's on board too. That's the most important part. But we'll just make sure that.
So she's sending it to them?
He's doing it then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect, thanks.
Do we want to, can and proceed with the other files in the meantime? To do that? Vote on this one first? Okay. Does anybody need any more water? I'll take a 5-minute break. Yeah, let's take 5 until they can set this up and this fella, and we'll be right back. And she sent me $300 bill
For listening to me, I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I called her.
Well, I called her secretary, didn't want to talk to her.
No.
Yeah, like each file has its associated report and everything. Here's the agent, I guess.
Just go.
Oh, really?
Okay, we can continue, I guess, and, so we have in front of us file number BNPL 2023174, and there's the applicants and agents are fine. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in the public to this application, either here or online? Last call. And the committee has no questions, or they might. And
the only one I have is, we have septic completely separate on each parcel, or? That's all good.
So nothing is changing as far as the dwellings and the infrastructure.
Yeah.
This is basically a.
As the beds are where they're supposed to.
Right, so this is just a housekeeping exercise by the looks of it. So, what are the wishes of the committee on this first one? Move to approve, Phil, thank you.
Second.
Okay. So file number BNPL 2023174 in the name of Gail Lazarado. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot within the resort residential area, meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. All in favor? And that is carried. And you can go ahead with the next one.
Yeah,
So, just before are you going to do them all three together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chair?
Well, we'll just vote on it separately.
Okay. I have a feeling that we just, the vote is going to be longer than the board, but. So for BNPL 2023-189, an application has been received to sever a parcel having no frontage and a regular width of 1.28 meters approximately, regular depth of 13.12 meters, an area of 0.00206 hectares, and retain a parcel with an area of approximately 0.033 hectares as a boundary adjustment. Lands to be added to the existing lot located immediately adjacent to the south of 2 Carroll Street with phone number as listed in the description. Resulting in the final lot size of 0.025 hectares. Regarding ANPL 2023-173, so this pertains to 63 Cedar Drive. It's been received, recognized deficiency created through the severance application BNPL 2023-189, requiring relief of. So the lot requires relief of 2.81 meters from the required lot frontage of 15 meters and 0.374 hectares from the minimum permitted lot area of 0.4 hectares. The existing vacation home requires relief of 30.35% from the maximum permitted lot coverage for the main use of 15%, 7.48 meters from the minimum rear yard setback of 9 meters, 0.58 meters from the interior required interior right side yard setback of 1.2 meters, and the existing deck requires relief of 1.32 meters from the required 3 meter setback from the rear lot line, and 1.2 meters from the maximum permitted projection of 1.5 meters into the required front yard. For ANPL 2023-190, which is for 2 Carroll Street. Similarly, with received recognized deficiencies created for boundary adjustment BNPL 2023-189, requiring relief of the word a lot, 0.366 hectares in the minimum required lot area of 0.4 hectares. The existing vacation home requires relief of 3% from the maximum permitted lot coverage for the main use of 15%, 4.21 meters from the minimum front yard setback of 6 meters, 0.25 meters from the required interior right side yard setback of 1.2 meters, and 0.05 meters relief from the maximum permitted 1.5 meter projection of the deck for front yard. So those are the items for relief. As noted earlier, the purpose of this application can be understood as a legal exercise to regularize deficiencies that are existing in the zoning bylaw from existing encroachments, which are affected by the boundary adjustment. So one item to note is staff reviewed the survey submitted, determines there's an existing shed on 2 Harold Street, which appears to encroach onto county-owned land. So the recommendation is just the property owner address this encroachment separately through the clerk's department. There's a separate process to deal with that. But it's not affected by the boundary adjustment. As with the previous application, the LPRCA submitted a comment in attachment 3 indicating no concern with the concept of the proposal, As with the previous application, section 9632I permits boundary adjustments provided that such matters are minor in nature. The 2 minor variances are sought to address the requirement of section 9632B of the official plan. So with all of that said, I'm of the opinion Severance application BNPL 2023-189 is consistent with the intent of the PPS, the official plan, and zoning bylaw as it pertains to severances. And I'm recommending approval subject to the attached standard conditions.
Okay, thank you. So we have an applicant here, and we'll get to you in a second. Let's just go through the formalities. Does the committee have any questions to the planner on any of these applications? No? Okay. Do you have anything to add? You're fine with everything that's been presented? Okay, very good. Is there anyone present, online or here, that wishes to speak to any of these applications, 189, 173, or 190? Hearing none. The wishes of the committee on file number BNPL 2023189, that's the severance. Tim? And a secondary, Phil? So file number BNPL 2023189 in the name of Neil Lazaretto. The application is consistent with provincial policy stating it complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding a boundary adjustment within the resort residential area and meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. All in favor? And that's carried. So next up is file number ANPL 2023173 in the name of Dale Lazaretto. That is a minor variance application. The wishes of the committee are Lisa moves to approve. Thank you. Tim seconds.
Mr. Chair, would you
Yes, please.
want a recommendation to deciding on that?
Sure.
Okay, so just for the record, my professional opinion, the NPL 2023-173 meets the core testimony variance and then recommend for approval.
Thank you. File number ANPL 2023173 in the name of Dale Lazaretto. All in favor? And that's carried. And Hannah, go ahead.
Thank you. And regarding APL 2023-190, and I'm of the opinion the application meets the core testimony variance and recommending approval.
Thank you. And the wishes of the committee are move to approve. And second. So file number ANPL 2023190 in the name of Dale Lazaretto, in accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the request for relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, maintains the general intent of the official plan and the zoning law. All in favor? That's it. We're done.
Take the signs down?
Oh, yeah. Have a burning party.
Yeah.
Right after that first glass of wine. There you go.
Just to confirm, the one ending in 174 is approved too, right?
They were all,
Okay, perfect.
take all the sun.
Yeah.
All signs, yeah.
There you go. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So file number ANPL 2023155 in the name of Ron and Mary Lynn Banks. And the planner can give the report, please.
Okay, thank you. So through the chair, an application has been received for the construction of an 80-foot by 60-foot accessory building requiring relief of 585 square meters and the maximum permitted usable floor area of 100 square meters to permit a total usable floor area of 685 square meters for all accessory structures. So just noting at the beginning here, again, there's a typo in the report, so page 7 states the application does meet the 4 tests. It should have been amended to reflect refusal and stated does not meet the 4 tests. So again, apologies for my error. So with the context, the subject lands are located in the urban area of Port Rowan. The lands are approximately 2.3 acres and are occupied by a 220 square meter single detached dwelling, a 231 square meter detached garage, which are shown in figure 1, and 2 accessory structures identified as sheds which are proposed to be removed. This application will facilitate the construction of a 445 square meter detached structure to be used for storage. No residential dwelling or commercial use is proposed in the structure per the application. The lands are designated urban residential, are affected by the Lakeshore Special Policy Area Secondary Plan, and are within the development zone. So starting from the PPS, section 1.1.3 outlines policies for settlement areas. And we'll find in sections 1.1.3.2, 1.1.3.4, there's language discussing a mix of land uses that efficiently use land and resources, and appropriate development standards promoted for facilitating compact form. Through the official plan, that language is carried through. So section 5.5 outlines policies for the Port Rowan urban area, noting the county will support and promote Port Rowan as a sustainable waterfront urban community, meaning the efficient island development. Section 7.7 pertains to policies in the urban residential designation, outlining criteria for what's permitted, which includes residential uses and uses accessory to them. There's this interesting piece of policy that talks about neighborhood commercial uses, which specifies no more than 1 commercial structure or building shall be permitted on any site. And the gross floor area of the commercial use shall be generally not exceed 300 square meters. And then subsection DBII notes neighborhood commercial use subject to site plan control. So at top, I just understand the proposed use today is not intended for commercial use. It is for storage. So storage for personal use on a residential lot is not inconsistent with the PPS or the official plan. But I'm going to place my script. We should recognize that official plan policies for urban residential designation identifies the limit in size for buildings associated for commercial use in the designation, even requires that these types and scales of uses go through site plan control. So why is that? So we understand commercial buildings are typically larger than residential structures, and their larger size can be more impactful in residents in the neighborhood character in urban areas in comparison to other areas that are within the commercial designation. Similarly, it's important to assess large buildings used for commercial use through site plan control because they can have impact on visible things like stormwater management and drainage, roadworks, and also for compatibility with neighbors such as things like lighting. So again, I understand the proposed use today is not for commercial use, but I think it's important for us to recognize that once the building exists on site and has the permissions through the minor variance, it can have implications for how its future and potential use is perceived. So we even see this on a smaller scale when we have existing accessory structures that are granted the need for height and size when being converted for ADUs. So section 11.8.1 of the Special Policy Area Secondary Plan contains community design guidelines, which provides design guidance to settlement area built form, including Port Rowan. 11.8.2 states the county shall encourage both the development of neighborhoods and design and construction of buildings which are based on the principles of sustainability. And this sustainable building design shall promote the reduction of the consumption of energy, land, and non-renewable resources. And then similarly, section 11.821, subsection CI, highlights the promotion of the creation of human scale environments that support the goal for standards for neighborhood location design. So again, policies in the Port Rowan urban area, urban residential designation, and the secondary plan and the provincial policy statement all consistently highlight development should possess an efficient pattern of development reduce consumption of land and other non-renewable resources. This is a design that creates smooth-scale environments. And the benefit of meeting these goals from a planning perspective is that neighborhoods are designed to suit the residential nature they're intended to demonstrate. So, in my opinion, establishing a structure, regardless of the use, exceeding this intended size and method of land use control doesn't meet the intent of the official plan or represent a desirable use for the appropriate development of the lands. Through the development zone, the maximum usable floor area of 100 square meters, and the release day is sought for 585 square meters. To be brief, I don't think this needs to test to be minor in the intent of the zoning bylaw, given that the size of the building exceeds the existing house and the amount of relief is over 6 times the permitted. And then lastly, my report also notes the holding bylaw 16Z 2023, which was included as an attachment, limits many types of new developments. So while storage is permitted today, any alternative use, like commercial, industrial, or an ADU would not be permitted as a right to the zoning bylaw. And then lastly, a comment was submitted yesterday to the planning department. So just noting here that the resident requested their name and address not be included on the public record. And then for transparency, this would remove some of the rights they have through the Planning Act. So I can read that comment right now once I find it.
Is that separate than the one that we have circulated?
Yes, thank you.
So this is the same one or separate?
That's the same.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So this submission has been made by an owner of the property within 60 meters of the proposed application. This is, I'm quoting now.
Can I just ask you before you confirm that?
Sorry?
You've confirmed that the anonymous person is within the 60 meters?
No, so we received an email, and that email states an address.
Okay.
But to be honest, I didn't look at the.
Okay, all right, just curious one.
Fair question, yeah, to be honest, no, I haven't looked at that.
Okay.
So quoting the letter, the owner, Ron and Mary Banks, has applied to build a personal accessory building that will expand their building allowance by nearly 6 times the current permitted allowance for residential zone lot, which poses many concerns for ourselves and neighboring properties. The total size of the proposed accessory building is being 685 square meters, suspiciously large to be permitted for personal use. The applicant has recently applied to build the exact same building at a neighboring commercial property, but was denied. The applicant is now applying to build this for quote unquote personal use when it would clearly apply to be built commercially in the past. And some reason concern is that this will not be used personally as the size is much too large for one family to use for themselves. This is a large concern. There is a large concern that this will be used for commercial use. Furthermore, the land is neighboring sensitive conservation land in the world biosphere. There is concern about the effect that the additional amount of hardscape may have on the already sensitive ecosystem if this is permitted once building has begun or completed. There is concern about proper water easement. This address is not connected to town sewer system, and therefore the standing water needs to be drained to neighboring property, which is either privately owned or conservation land. The town of Port Rowan is currently limited for any expansion as there is currently limited to no infrastructure and history of buildings. The water resources needed to build and sustain the proposed application would pose a risk to limit the infrastructure available. So that's the end of the comment. And then in conclusion, it's my opinion as a member of staff that such an application does not meet the core test for the reasons outlined in the report. And I'm recommending it for refusal today. Thank you all for your time.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee have any questions of the plan? Linda, go ahead.
Yeah, so in the comment from the neighbor, have you confirmed that the applicant had applied for the same building basically on a commercial property? Is that?
The applicant.
We'll get to that.
For your question, I have not had a chance to review and confirm as we received this yesterday.
Is there an applicant or agent present?
Agent?
Yeah.
An applicant?
Anything to add?
I'm Greg, yeah. Let's say a couple words. Go up here. The applicant is Ron Banks.
He formerly owned Banks Marine across the road, directly from 900. And he has a collection of boats. He's been building boats for 40 years, and he just wants to store his boats. That's all. And it is true that when he sold the business at 14 Hunter, excuse me, he severed off a piece at the end, at the south end, closer to the neighbor, I think, who complained. Severed off, in accordance with the county, and then we went through site plan control for it, and it was allowed to be built there. And we didn't want water services, but the county insisted, right, Mahmoud? The county insisted, and of course there's a moratorium on it, so it stopped. It took us 2 years to get to that date. So the building that he wants to construct in this location has been sitting on the ground for 2 years, and we do consider it somewhat minor in nature, because the building cracked is like 5 times bigger than an allowable accessory building, but that lot is 2.5 acres, not a quarter acre. And if you go back to the original plan, it's there's lots of locations to put that on there, and there's a grading plan required for the permit, so that no neighbor's going to be affected by the water.
Anything?
Ron, would you like to say something?
Sure, yeah.
Further to what Greg had said, I'm Ron Banks.
Yep.
And further to what Greg had said, the lot is very not typical of a Port neighborhood. Hunter Drive North is dominated basically by commercial property. There are 2 houses on Hunter Drive North, this being one of them. Each one of the houses has over 2 acres. To the north of it, there's a field I believe is owned by Norfolk County that separates this property from the sewage treatment facility.
Sorry, the what?
Sewage treatment facility, approximately 500 meters down the way. To the west of it is an open field currently in farm. On the edge of that property, there's a storage building for all the farm equipment. The house on the corner of Hunter Drive that faces onto Front Road also has a fairly large storage building attached to it, and always has had. So I don't really consider it that atypical for that particular neighborhood. It's not a typical suburban subdivision. The lot coverage would increase by another 4.8% by the addition of this building, which still puts our total lot coverage at only 9.78% of the lot. And from what my understanding is, we're allowed to occupy 30% of that lot. So we're still only at about 1/3 of the lot coverage that's actually approved. Setbacks from the buildings from the property line is almost 3 times what the minimum allowance is. So it's not crowding the neighbors in any way. So I guess I just have to emphasize it is for my personal collection of boats and things I've collected over the years, that's all.
Okay. I'll let the committee ask questions first. I have one. Go ahead, Linda.
So do you still own the commercial property?
No.
You don't?
No, that was sold and I retired in 2021.
But there was a lot severed that you were gonna build?
Yes, I still own that.
You still own that
small
piece, so you
lot.
could build this building on that piece if it wasn't through the water issue? Is that what
I
you're saying?
understand that's true, yes.
Okay, and was there any suggestion that you go to council and ask for an exemption from the requirement to be connected to the water system?
There
No.
was a provision in the planning report that the only the only person who could grant an exemption was the engineering department. So we did speak with the engineering department, forget his name at this point in time.
Andrew Price.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, development.
Yeah, he's the only guy, and we did talk to him, and he agreed that it didn't make any sense that we needed water, and he was gonna grant the exemption, but then I think he had a chat with Fritz, and Fritz changed his mind.
Okay.
Okay,
I don't know if there's alternate solutions to that, such as a rainwater capture system and a cistern or anything else, but we weren't offered any of those solutions at all.
because my thought would be that the issue would be fire protection possibly.
No, it's that any lot, any development on any lot in Norfolk County requires municipal services if they are available.
Okay, so you can go to council and ask for a zoning bylaw amendment, because I think that would be a zoning bylaw thing, would it not? Kind of stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
Mohammed, to Mr. Chair, so that was a separate law, but what you said that because you did not able to build that facility, that lot, you want to use this?
Because we were allowed, we eventually got to the point where we were allowed to use that commercial lot. But in the 11th hour, we were told that we needed to grow out water services.
My concern is that was a separate land, a separate proposal. And this
It was
is a
completely separate. It's the same building.
application, right?
Right.
So please let him answer the question. He'll have a chance to
Let's
respond.
focus on this application and
Yeah.
of this application based on this proposal of this land.
Yeah, we're not gonna sort of that proposal
No.
here, because we're dealing with what's here today. Anything
I
else?
understand that, but my
Yeah.
question is,
No, I
if
understand.
we're refusing, like, if I feel that they have an alternative solution for the property, then I'm inclined to support the refusal, but if I think they can't find a solution, then I might support it.
I would
So
agree.
it's helping, it's influencing my decision on this application. So my question is to staff, on the other, in the zoning bylaw, can council grant an exemption to the requirement to be connected to water and sewer?
So, Mr. Chair, I would again point out that that was a separate issue for a separate application. And we are talking about an accessory structure on this land. And the decision should be based on whether it is minor or not, based on this application.
Okay, so I have a question.
That was a separate.
Okay.
Can I also, let me jump in.
Two, yeah.
The proposed use is storage, so connection to water services doesn't, I don't see the link, it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why we're talking about connections to water services and exemptions from council when the intention is being told to us that it's for storage. If I can be frank.
Right, okay. Tim?
Yeah, so my question is, with the size of the lot and what the applicant's saying, that it's not, so if we take the commercial thing out of the equation, you're saying it's acceptable or not acceptable?
Use aside, I don't find it meets the core test of minor variance. So if the use is being
So-
stated to be storage,
Okay,
I accept that at face value.
yes.
I don't find it meets the core test for minor variance. What I am also doing is highlighting through our current official plan designation policies for commercial uses which tend to be larger,
Yes.
they're highlighting that there should be a limit of 300 square meters. This structure is far beyond that.
No.
And they also highlight that site plan control is applicable, and there's a purpose for that requirement, right? We capture many things through site plan control, so in permitting a storage structure of a size that exceeds even a standard commercial building and is not being handled through site plan control, it doesn't meet the intent of the official plan. In addition to the other considerations for zoning, in that it's larger than the main use to which it's accessory for. It's not a minor request, and I don't find that it's appropriate for desirable use plans.
So, what my thoughts are the regulations based on these quarter-acre lots? Because I'm looking at a 2-acre lot, I'm just asking. So if you took this lot, so what, it's all due to the zoning of the lot, is that why it? I'm just trying to get, like, if it was a small lot, you said I want to build a giant building in a small lot, it takes up the whole space, I'm just trying to get Like, is this drawing proportionate to what it would actually be?
This is based on the submission from the applicant, the
Oh,
GPS
okay.
mapping is based on that.
It is to scale.
Yeah,
So,
So-
Mr. Chair, I put my hand on one thing, is that, this is zone D development, it's not a residential zone, so there is no lot coverage requirement here. But they still have to maintain the size of the accessory structure of that zone, so which is 100 square meter, it's like.
yeah.
Okay.
So we have to, our part of discussion is whether it is minor or in nature or not. These are minor various application. So we have to focus on the purpose of this application.
Right, okay.
I can
Go ahead, Donna.
One last thing.
Sure thing.
So I understand the committee seeks to find the consensus and support, and we all like to do that. So my suggestion at the beginning of this process in speaking with Greg was suggesting perhaps the zoning bylaw amendment is a more appropriate application. I would be more comfortable giving support if it is truly for storage and is not seeking a connection to services. But for something of this scope at this committee, I don't think it meets the core test. So I'm happy to work with the applicant if they're seeking maybe a zoning bylaw amendment for the use as described. So just kind of planting that seed it is an option, but I understand Greg is working with his client.
Well, we have been trying to put this building up for 3 years now. 3 years down when Ron started to do the severance, and that it has specific zoning for it. We had to do an archaeological study, that took quite some time. And then we got through that, and then got to, as I stated, where the county insisted that we needed to provide water services to that, on that other lot. And so our appetite at this point for pulling away from this and going and trying to bylaw zoning amendment is rough a little bit.
Yeah,
Could I just ask, what the process and how long it might take to apply for bylaw zoning amendment? We've been 3 to 4 months getting to this stage already.
Yeah.
I don't know if that represents another 3 to 4 months or whether that would be.
Rather one Mr. Chair, so for the zoning bylaw, I mean, generally if this proposal comes to a planner and you discuss the possibility of other options, I think planner would probably recommend that you better apply for the zoning bylaw amendment. But if that not happen, then yes, if it is a zoning bylaw amendment, then we can do it in 90 days. So once your application is being complete, we can post the application based on that timelines and do it in 90 days.
And that takes 90 days.
Before that, you have to request us for a meeting to identify what are the documents you have to provide. So you have to go to your family consultation meeting where we provide you the documents required. And once you submit the applications, then you go to the planning and
Okay,
But the interesting is granted.
just before you carry on here, just let me get the meeting back. I think, in my opinion, I mean, you have a number of alternatives to this. I'm really not supporting this development on this land because of the size of the building. It's far excessive, like the planner has reported. I need to go, you've had your say, we understand your positions. I need to go to the public now, because it is a public meeting, to see if there are anybody present that wishes to speak to this application for or against, present or online. Yes, come on.
I say go for it.
Can you state your name, please, for the record?
Ladavicius,
Yeah,
L-I-U-D-A-V-I-C-I-U-S, and I've been listening to everybody's input. If there's an extended amount of acres that is applicable, that would house or situate a bit extra building, I don't see what the problem is. I don't really understand why there's so much hurdles to jump over when it seems like there's enough property there to do a building if he is just using it for his own personal reason, he doesn't want a commercial building for like a business. And I've been listening to everything, but I don't see why it is such a big holdback after 3 years of trying to give all the information. It seems like he's been waiting and doing everything that was asked. So I don't see why there should be any more holdup in this. I think it should be approved.
Okay, can I just ask you, where do you reside in relation to this property?
I'm just a taxpayer.
Okay.
I'm honestly, like, I'm just.
You're not an immediate neighbor in the.
No, I'm not an immediate neighbor. I'm just trying to get involved in the community. This is my first thing.
Okay, I'm glad you came.
And I'm just trying to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, duly noted. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to this application? Either online or with us present? No? Does the committee have anything further to the applicant or the agent? Linda, go ahead.
Of course I do.
That's okay. That's what we're here for.
So I just feel like, this isn't minor and it's probably not suited to this community. I feel really terrible about that because I sympathize with you've been trying for how long you have. But I feel there's other options, so you can even consider doing it on this property that we're looking at tonight, going with a zoning bylaw amendment to council, and council can make that decision, and it doesn't need to be a minor variance. So that's kind of or you could consider options for the commercial property that you still own. I suspect, but I don't know, I didn't get an answer, that council could grant on that probably an exemption to that requirement as well, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So, however, council can make amendments to zoning bylaws and
they do.
And they do. So.
Okay, anything else, Tim? Phil?
No.
Lisa? Oh, you sir in the back.
I wanted to add, this is actually something that, if you recall her, Paula Budis, former county solicitor, she actually pointed out to me, one of the misconceptions with minor variances is whether it's minor or not, doesn't deal with the quantum of the relief. So I have a building and I want to build it and it's 1,000 square meters, but it's in the middle of bush and there's no neighbors. That can be minor. The minor is what's the potential impact on abutting lands. So the quantum of the building is not the question. What's the impact on the abutting lands? I think it's a completely reasonable proposal based on that.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead.
There are two items what we will address. One is it is zone D, and the zone D is generally the zone D established when there is a region development. And if you look at the area, and southern areas, all these areas are zone D because there will be a future residential development. So now identifies this area as a future residential development. Since it's a non-residential designation. So in that context, even commercial use or perceived commercial use is not compatible.
Right.
So that's one aspect. The other aspect is as we were talking about the quantity or how we qualify it as a minor or not. We have a requirement of 100 square meter as accessory structure. There's a reason for it. And if it is going 5 times than that, then obviously we think about the competitive issues and also think about its impact on surrounding areas. Based on that,
okay, so I think we've heard from everybody. What are the wishes of the committee? I would suggest a motion to support the planner's recommendation, but that's just a suggestion, Madam Chair. But let the planners, let the committee decide that. Once?
Yeah, nobody, it's a tough one, right? I guess, can I have one more question, Glenn?
Sure.
So, take this property out, put this property, on the back road somewhere. Would they be allowed to build a 6,000 square foot shop on a 2 acre property in the back road?
It's not 6,000 square foot.
Well, it's not, it's
4,800.
Okay, 4,800.
Mr. Chair, we do have examples like that.
Yes.
And they're from the application and that's been.
Sorry, speak up, I can't hear you.
Can't hear.
So we do have examples, something like that as you mentioned.
Okay.
And it went through a zoning bylaw amendment, approved by the council. So that's the proper tool to address this kind of issues.
So what would the zoning, so they have to change?
So it is a zoning bylaw amendment instead of minor variance. So the example you mentioned, we went through a zoning bylaw amendment to the council, and council decided that. And what planning recommended is that approach to address this issue.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Then the moves to approve. Can I get a seconder?
Yep, it's Wilson.
Okay, so file number ANPL 2023155, the name of Rod and Mary Davis. A motion to approve. In accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the requested relief is considered minor in nature. Appropriate to the proposed development, minor in nature, does meet the general intent of the officials plan of zoning bylaw. All in favor of approval? So we got, just keep your hands up for a second, Tim, and Lisa, and Linda, and Phil, no? Okay, and I am also. So 3-2, that's carried. And that is approved. I was waiting to see how the vote went before I scratched it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Thanks for your support.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Fleur.
So last up, we have file number. This is the last one, right?
Hey, the best for last, right?
What's that?
The best for last.
Yeah, here we go. Best for last. File number BNPL 2023188, Mel's Farms Limited. And the planner can give the report, please.
Thank you. An application has been received, several parcel having a frontage and width approximately of 77 meters, a depth 77 meters, an area of 5,890 square meters, and retain a parcel having an area approximately 39 hectares, as the service of the following may surplus your farm application. This consent to sub applications can be received concurrently with the zoning amendment to the retained lands to manage the same following as a permitted use in the agricultural zone. The lands to be severed are occupied by a single detached dwelling. The lands to be retained are occupied by a barn, as shown in figure 1 in map 3 of my report. It's a row of vegetation that runs along the eastern interior lot line, extending past the proposed rear lot line, and a row of vegetation on the western lot line to the rear of the house. Figures 2 and 3 of my report show there's a driveway that is connected between the lands to be severed and retained.
Good.
Okay. This application was previously approved on March 21st, 2021 by the Committee of Adjustment. I've included attachment 2 that shows the decision and the conditions of approval for that file number, which is BNPL 2021-020. This application today is resubmitted to follow the same application as that previous one due to the file lapsing. So staff evaluation comments therefore recognize the benefit of maintaining a consistent approach of the previous planning report, included as attachment 3, while also maintaining contemporary standards for surplus residences, separatism, and social farm compensation. So I think we're all familiar with section 2341C1 of BBS that outlines when consents can occur. So in brief, I've evaluated that to determine it meets the definition of a resident surplus to a farming operation as a result of consolidation. The lot size is exceeding the minimum lot size of 2,000 square meters. So in my mind, due to the location of the house on the western lot line and proximity to the barn, it would be difficult to bring the western lot line in closer. Similarly, amending the eastern lot line to be closer to the single industrial line would reduce the relatively minor amount of cultivated land separate with the house. However, creating this configuration would create kind of a weird narrow band to be retained, which would be difficult for a typical cash crop machinery to navigate and therefore create inefficient pattern land use. So I'm of the opinion that amending the lot configuration to bring the rear lot line closer to the house would have the effect of reducing the lot area to the minimum size needed. But I do also recognize the benefit of retaining some existing hedge covers and also maintaining consistency in the previously approved application. But I have noted for transparency in the report, because this lot exceeds the minimum lot size, there would not be support for future proposals or boundary adjustments to incorporate more of the tree line, as we sometimes see applications, as we sometimes see in other applications for this purpose for lots previously severed in the agricultural area. There are discussions or policies, in sections 723 and 9632 of the official plan. Some key items to consider today are regarding compatibility and servicing. So section 723B notes no consent shall be granted unless it is demonstrated the separate lot will not adversely affect the operation and viability of the farm operation of the retained lot. And similarly, section 9632CI, no stipulation of the lot does not compromise on the long-term use of the remaining land or parcel. Regarding servicing, 723CI notes the separate lot shall be serviced by appropriate water supply and wastewater treatment facilities to be situated on the lot to be created. So making consistency with contemporary applications and satisfy the official plan policies noted, I have added conditions 3, 4, and 5, which require a well to be drilled on the parcel. Concept plan or survey be submitted confirming the location of the well and that the driveway be disconnected and either reseeded with grass or a physical barrier added. Confirmed with the agent that the well is not located in the parcel to be severed, so that's the intention of that consent, that the house has a well. And the driveway disconnection piece is similar to other applications we've seen in the past that share driveways. Condition 6 is met by GIS, condition 7-8 by the building department, and condition 9 by the development engineering department. Well said, planning staff recommend the subject application for approval. And our opinion is consistent with the policy of the GIS and official plan. It's relates to consent to center, policies of the agricultural designation, and that's it. I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Agent or applicant present? Yes, sir. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? The agent or applicant have anything to add?
Thank you for the report. It's about as speechless as I'll ever get.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak to this application either here or online? Hearing none, the wishes of the committee are move to approve. Bill moves to approve. Seconded by Tim. Thank you. So file number BNPL 2023188, Niles Farms Limited. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot in an agricultural area and meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Is there any other business or announcements? Anything from the committee? I better sign this. You have some binders to enjoy and peruse. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
There you go. Yeah, now you just watch it from home.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.